with waterfalls, lagoons, and an erupting volcano.
I think probably deep down inside I'm a developer. Developers love to create space. They're romantic people.
What you're developing isn't romance, Steve. You're developing decadence. You know, the Golden Nugget's decadence, not romance.
Controlled decadence. You mean people drinking, laughing, dancing, sex, food, gambling, all that stuff? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, I don't know what they'd be referring to. That's a lot of decadence. That's a commercial for Las
Vegas. If you think I'm going to take a position against it, you're certainly interviewing the wrong guy.
Hi, Mr. Sinatra. I'm Steve Wynn. I run this place.
You see, I get enough towels.
These commercials, mugging with Frank Sinatra, established Wynn as a public personality. The man Vegas holds up as proof the place has changed.
That's a good boy.
Instead of hiding in the shadows, he sells himself as one of a new breed who cuts his deals with Wall Street, not the mob.
This is a legitimate business in America. The men who are running it are fellows who are very comfortable going to lunch with chairmen of the board of automobile manufacturing companies or major banking chairmen. That first group that built and pioneered this place, they did not have access to the kind of men. They weren't part of a fraternity of businessmen.
Also, a lot of them were gangsters. I mean, they were going after something a little different.
Actually, what happened, Meredith, is the guys who came out here weren't gangsters. They were friends of gangsters. So actually, the hoods themselves didn't come except to visit once in a while.
Luck be a lady tonight.
Wynn's first memory of a mob-dominated Vegas was as an awestruck 10-year-old. He came on a family visit with his father, a Maryland bingo operator and a compulsive gambler. Wynn says his dad's sickness only made him regard the place with more awe.
People come to Las Vegas in the heyday of the underworld involvement here, the 50s, and they would love to sit in the hotels controlled by the underworld because it was like part of the show.
Tonight.
When Wynn returned in 1967, the mob had adopted a lower profile. Las Vegas seemed ready for the Ivy League graduate eager to launch his career. Wynn invested in the Golden Nugget, staged a successful takeover, and at the age of 31 became the youngest casino owner in town. But he couldn't have done it without his extraordinary relationship with the most powerful man in Nevada, Parry Thomas of the Valley Bank. At every turn, Wynn's mentor was there, with millions of dollars in loans.
He saw the gaming industry becoming something a lot different than what it had been in the 50s. You know, a collection of hotsy-totsy, 200-room wise guy joints on the Strip.
But the money Thomas's bank used to finance Vegas was not without taint. Much of it came from the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund, which the Mafia ran.
So how did that make you feel, though, when you realized that so much of that money was controlled by the mob?
I didn't even think of it in that terms. Money is money, loans are loans, credit is credit.
But when you look back now, Mr. Thomas, do you wish the money had come from somewhere else?
Wouldn't even bat an eye. Knowing the transition through the years as a very small bank, trying to service a rapidly growing, enormous industry. Yes, I would take their money again.
The corruption was never with the bank. The corruption was with the hotels.
But if the bank was a conduit, did you ever
The bank, again, that's a bad choice of words. I'm going to have to stop you on this, Meredith, because you're way off base on this sort of thing. Funding a loan from the Teamsters never had anything to do with Mr. Thomas's integrity, either way.
Wynn's own reputation in Vegas has always been first-rate. But when he ventures beyond the desert, people tend to ask questions. In 1981, he tried to expand his gambling empire to England. Wynn bought a London hotel, but he failed to receive a gaming license.
The British turned you down?
Well, they don't exactly turn you down. What they do is they don't hear you calling. You apply for a certificate of consent, and it does not issue.
So you pulled out?
There's nothing left to do. You can't argue with them. They don't want American control.
If you get into bed with the American gambling industry, you're getting into bed with the mob. Whether you know it or not, that's what's going to occur.
Frank Pulley was one of the Scotland Yard detectives who investigated casino applicants like Wynn.
The man has made an untold fortune in an industry which historically has been proved to be replete with organized crime. It was invented by the mob. It was modernized by the mob. The mob have put money into it, and they've taken vast amounts of money out of it.
Do you think the British made up their minds about you before you even walked in there?
Oh, I don't know why I would think a thing like that. I mean, the fact that when the Scotland Yard guy came to investigate us in my office, he did everything but ask me to put my hands against the side of the wall and frisk me.
Can you blame people for that prejudice?
Why, sure. They're complete idiots for that kind of lack of professionalism. You can blame them in a second.
When Atlantic City opened for gambling in 1978 and became an instant success, suspicions like those of Scotland Yard took a back seat to the lure of profits. Wynn seized the opportunity and single-handedly convinced Wall Street that together they could strike it rich. He got John Kissick and other investment bankers at Drexel Burnham to finance his Atlantic City casino. Since then, Wall Street has gone bullish on gambling. But Kissick admits not every gray suit was confident at first.
We went in with our eyes open. We don't normally have twice as many lawyers looking. We don't usually have the same amount of background checks we had. But we had a lot of people looking at a lot of things.
Did you have any problems with anything that you found out in that investigation about either Wynn or his associates?
I've never felt less than comfortable with the integrity of Steve Wynn and the management of the Nugget. Sometimes I felt less comfortable about some of the things that have come up, but I think Steve Wynn's felt less comfortable about some of the things that have come up, too.
What Drexel Burnham was sure of is that the Golden Nugget couldn't have any involvement with nefarious people unless I was in on it. It couldn't happen around me. It couldn't happen in spite of me. It would have to happen with my consent or my approval or my allowing it to happen.
You mean if it was happening at the Golden Nugget, you would know it?
I'd have to know it.
But you didn't know about Mell Harris. You said you didn't know about Mell Harris.
Mell Harris never got involved with the Golden Nugget longer than 20 seconds after it was brought to our attention.